what has been marked as exhibit number 14. Do you recognize the person in this photo?
Yes.
And who is that?
This is Amber Heard.
Okay. And were you just described what you saw on the 16th with respect to Amber Heard's injuries. Does this accurately depict what you saw on Amber Heard on December 16, 2015?
Yes.
Ms. Iglesias, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as Exhibit 16. Again, do you recognize the person in this photo?
Yes.
And who is that?
Amber Heard.
Okay. And does this picture reflect the injuries that you saw on Amber Heard on December 16, 2015?
Yes.
Okay. And then I'm going to ask you to take a look at one more of those, and that is Exhibit 17. And I'm going to ask again, Ms. Iglesias, do you recognize the person in this picture? And maybe to try to move it along, is it Amber Heard?
Yes.
Okay. And does this reflect what you saw as well on December 16, 2015?
I mean, that's three pictures with very different light, but yes.
Now, do you also recall there being an injury to Amber Heard's lip?
Correct.
And Ms. Iglesias, I'm going to ask you to take a look at exhibit number 19, and do you recognize the person in this photograph as Amber Heard?
Yes.
And does this picture accurately reflect what you saw on Amber Heard on December 16, 2015?
Yes.
Ms. Iglesias, could you please describe what you did by way of makeup to prepare Amber Heard for the James Corden show on December 16, 2015?
Yes. We covered, I just did makeup, but just a little heavier weight needed. So we covered, the discoloration, the bruises with a little slightly heavier concealer. One that has a little more of a peach undertone, which I would normally don't use on Amber, but peach do cancel blue. So I did that under the eyes, and although Amber always, has a red lip, is one of her signature look, I remember clearly talking that we had no other option that night but then to use a red blood, like a really red lipstick to, make sure we could cover up the injuries on the lip.
And were you able to cover all of the injuries with the makeup that you applied and as you just described?
Yes.
Ms. Iglesias, if you could look at what has been marked as exhibit number 22, do you recognize Amber Heard in that picture?
Yes.
Okay. And is this the picture of her? Is this a picture of her that evening, December 16, 2015, on the James Corden show?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you observe on the difference in Amber Heard's demeanor before the show and then on the show?
That she had the ability to, turn it on. That she, the ability to do her job and perform how she was supposed to perform on the show.
And prior to Amber going on the show and while you were working with her on her makeup, how would you describe Amber's mood and demeanor? Angry,
Sad, a little erratic, I think through waves of emotions,
Do you recall someone named Ms. McMillan having any role in helping to prepare Amber Heard for that James Corden show that night, December 16?
Yes.
What do you recall?
Samantha was a stylist. Samantha was there the day of the James Corden show, as she was always there to get her ready before an appearance or a show.
And did Samantha work on Amber before or after you were applying the makeup?
I don't know if she worked on Amber, but when I entered the Penthouse 5, Samantha was there with Amber. So Samantha was there before I entered the penthouse.
And Do you recall whether Samantha was hugging Amber when you came in?
I recall opening the penthouse. So there's two penthouses. There's the penthouse where she gets ready. So Amber at the penthouse where Samantha gets her ready, where all Amber's clothes is. If I recall properly, that's the penthouse that I enter first, just to say hi before I would go set up in the other penthouse. And my recollection is when I enter, Amber was crying, looked pretty upset on Samantha's shoulder, or they were like, I don't know if hugging is the right way, but they were definitely had a moment where they were together, and Amber looked really upset.
Ms. Iglesias, I'm going to ask just a couple more questions about the makeup that you applied on Amber on December 16, 2015 for the James Corden show. I think you said that you had applied some concealer and that you had some peach undertones with it to cancel out some blue. Did I hear that correctly? I was asking about, I wrote down that you said that you had applied on Amber concealer, you had some peach undertones to cancel blue. Is that what you said?
Correct.
So what type of concealer did you apply to Amber? And if you use different color tones, can you please describe why you used the color tones you did?
I used a different kind of concealer that I would normally use on Amber, which I used a concealer that had peach undertone. Peach undertone concealer are more effective to cover any darkness of blue undertone than a normal concealer.
Do you know what type of makeup Amber Heard typically wore?
Objection,
Yes.
vague.
Can you please describe for me?
Yes, she's pretty natural. She has a concealer from a company called, or she used to have a concealer from a company called Clé de Peau. Her makeup would be pretty simple, concealer and a little benefit tint that she used on her lips and she used on her cheeks. Very natural.
It had a natural look to it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But she did wear concealer and what you described, correct?
Do you mean in her daily life or that night?
In her daily life.
Yes, she has a concealer that she uses all the time, and she has a couple of products that she uses all the time, daily, yes. Well, I mean daily, yes, as far as I know.
And do you feel confident in what you described that you saw that day of Amber Heard's injuries? And I'm talking about December 16, 2015.
1,000%, without a doubt. Because I just don't remember, it's 5 years ago, I don't remember the exact date.
And could you describe Amber Heard's demeanor in those days before and after the filing for divorce and for the domestic violence restraining order?
An area of different emotion, definitely from sadness to not wanting to divorce to anger to being really upset to being really sad. So it was just a roller coaster of emotion that I think we were all there those couple of days to help navigate and go through it.
I take it from your response today, you still feel very emotional about this. It's very difficult for you, isn't it?
It's not difficult for me, no, but it just reminded me at the time how I felt, yes.
When did you first tell Ms. Heard that you were no longer interested in having her as a client and being friends with her?
That phone call, about a month ago.
How was it said?
Well, I just told Amber that, I wish her well and I just have no interest in continuing a relationship, whatever it's work-wise or friendship-wise.
But is there a specific reason other than the birth of your child and the postpartum issues that you described, both as client and Ms. Iglesias? What was your impression of Mr. Depp when you first met him?
Lovely.
You thought he was lovely?
Yeah.
Was each of the, well, let me ask the backup question. Did you interact with Mr. Depp? How many times did you interact with Mr. Depp?
Through, you mean all in all?
Oh, yes. The entire